Some stories aren't just about survival. They're about transformation. They're about the moment when everything you believed, everything you swore to uphold, crumbles in the face of an impossible choice. This is the story of Jacob Morrison, a man who made a blood oath under the scorching Arizona sun, a man who promised vengeance, a man who thought he knew what justice looked like, until the desert taught him otherwise. The year was 1873. The Arizona Territory was a powder keg of violence, distrust, and bloodshed. Jacob Morrison stood over 3 freshly dug graves, his hands still blistered from the shovel work. His wife, Sarah, his son, Thomas, barely 7 years old, his daughter, Emma, who would have turned 5 the following week. The ranch he'd built with his own hands smoldered behind him, reduced to ash and memories. The Apache raid had come at dawn, swift and merciless. He'd been in town, buying supplies. When he returned, his world had ended. The territorial marshal placed a heavy hand on Jacob's shoulder. "I'm sorry, Morrison. We'll do what we can, but nothing." Jacob's voice was hollow, scraped raw. His blue eyes, once kind, had turned to ice. "I don't need your marshals. I don't need your cavalry." He knelt beside the graves, placed his hand on the earth that covered his family, and he swore an oath that would haunt him for years to come. "Every Apache I see, every single one, I swear on their graves, I will make them pay." For 3 years, Jacob Morrison became something other than human. He became a shadow, a ghost story whispered around Apache campfires. He tracked raiding parties with relentless precision. He studied their language, their tactics, their sacred places, not to understand them, to destroy them more effectively. He took work as a scout for the army, guiding cavalry units through Apache territory. But his fellow scouts noticed something disturbing. Jacob didn't just fight Apaches. He hunted them. Even when the fighting was over, he'd disappear into the canyons, searching for stragglers. "Morrison's gone mad," one scout told the captain. "He's got the look of a man who's already dead inside." The captain didn't disagree. But Jacob Morrison was useful. In a war where both sides committed atrocities, one more broken man didn't seem to matter. Jacob kept count. 17, 23, 31. Each one was supposed to make the pain less. Each one was supposed to bring him peace. Instead, the emptiness only grew. It happened in the summer of 1876, during the hottest August anyone could remember. Jacob was tracking a small Apache band suspected of raiding cattle from nearby ranches. He'd separated from his patrol, following tracks into the Sonoran Desert, a maze of twisted canyons and sun-blasted rock that could kill a man in a dozen different ways. He should have turned back. Every instinct screamed at him to rejoin the patrol. But the tracks were fresh, and his obsession was stronger than his common sense. The ambush came from nowhere. Not from Apaches, from nature itself. His horse stumbled in loose shale, and they both went down hard. Jacob heard the sickening crack of the horse's leg, saw the animal's eyes roll white with pain. He had to put it down, and then he realized his canteen had shattered in the fall. 3 days without water. That's how long a man might last in this heat, if he was lucky. Jacob had maybe 2. He was 15 miles from the nearest water source he knew of. The sun was a hammer, the rocks an anvil, and he was being pounded between them. By noon of the first day, his lips had cracked and split. By evening, his tongue felt like leather in his mouth. The second day was worse. He found some shade beneath an overhang, but it was like hiding from hellfire behind paper. His vision began to blur. He saw Sarah and the children in the wavering heat, beckoning to him. "Not yet," he croaked. "I'm not done." But the desert didn't care about his vengeance. The desert kept no promises but one. Everything that entered would eventually become sand. On the 3rd morning, Jacob couldn't stand. His legs buckled when he tried. The world spun in sickening circles. This was it then. This was how Jacob Morrison would die. Not in glorious combat, but baked alive in a godforsaken canyon, his bones to be scattered by coyotes. He thought of his oath. 37 Apaches he'd killed or helped kill. Had it been worth it? Had it brought Sarah back? Had it made little Thomas laugh again? Or Emma sing her silly songs? No, of course not. He'd known that for years, but couldn't stop. That's when he heard the footsteps. Jacob's hand moved to his revolver, an instinct so deeply ingrained that even dying couldn't stop it. Through the swimming haze of his vision, he saw a figure approaching. Tall, dark, moving with the careful grace of someone who belonged to this land in a way Jacob never would. An Apache warrior. The man stopped 10 feet away, studying Jacob with obsidian eyes. He was young, maybe 25, with the lean hardness of someone who'd survived things that would break softer men. He carried a rifle, but it wasn't raised. Jacob's hand tightened on his revolver. This was it. The oath. Every Apache he saw. The warrior said something in Apache. Jacob's fevered brain translated it slowly. You are dying. Then finish it. Jacob rasped in broken Apache. The warrior tilted his head, considering. Then he did something Jacob would remember for the rest of his life. He set down his rifle. From a leather pouch, the warrior produced a water skin. He knelt, making himself vulnerable, and held it out to Jacob. Jacob stared at the water skin. His body screamed for it. Every cell in his body begged him to take it. But his oath screamed louder. Every Apache. Every single one. His revolver was still in his hand. The warrior was kneeling, defenseless. One shot. That's all it would take. Jacob had killed men for less. The warrior didn't move, didn't plead. He simply held out the water and waited. Time seemed to stop. The desert held its breath. And Jacob Morrison made his choice. His fingers opened. The revolver fell into the sand. He took the water skin with shaking hands and drank. Not too much. The warrior pulled it back after a few swallows, knowing that too much water too fast would kill the rest of that just as surely as none at all. He gave Jacob water in measured amounts. He found barrel cactus and showed him how to extract moisture from it. As the sun began to set, he helped Jacob to his feet and pointed toward the northeast. 2 hours, he said in halting English. Fort, that way. Why? Jacob's voice was broken. Why save me? The warrior was silent for a long moment. Then, my father, my brothers, you killed them, at Canyon de Muerto. Jacob's blood turned to ice. He remembered, 3 years ago, a dawn raid. He'd been with the cavalry. I saw you, the warrior continued. I was hiding. I was afraid. I lived because I was a coward. His eyes were hard but not hateful. I have thought many times of revenge, of finding you, of making you suffer as I suffered. Then why? Jacob whispered. Because this desert has taken enough sons from others, enough fathers from children. The warrior looked out at the endless expanse of rock and sand. And because revenge is a fire that burns the man who carries it. I see that fire in your eyes. It is killing you slower than this desert ever could. He picked up his rifle and turned to leave. Wait, Jacob called. What's your name? The warrior looked back. What does it matter? Tomorrow you will go back to your people. I will go back to mine, and the killing will continue. It matters to me. A pause. Then, Goyakla. But the Mexicans call me Geronimo. Jacob's eyes widened. He knew that name. Everyone did. One of the most feared Apache warriors on the frontier. You could have let me die, Jacob said. You should have. Yes, Geronimo agreed. But then you would never have learned that the man you hated was the same man who saved your life. You would have died with that fire still burning. Some men deserve that death. He studied Jacob carefully. Perhaps you did not. With that, he disappeared into the gathering darkness. Jacob made it to the fort. He recovered. He resigned from his position as a scout. He never hunted Apaches again. People asked him why. His fellow scouts, soldiers, even the territorial governor demanded to know what had changed. Jacob Morrison, the most ruthless Apache hunter in Arizona, had simply stopped. He never told them the full truth. How could he explain? How could he make them understand that in his moment of greatest weakness, his sworn enemy had shown him more humanity than he'd shown anyone in 3 years? He returned to what remained of his ranch. He rebuilt. Not the house. He couldn't bear to live there again, but something new. A way station for travelers crossing the desert. A place where anyone, regardless of their skin color or their past, could find water, shade, and safety. He marked the trail carefully. making sure no one would get lost as he had. Above the door, he carved a single word in English and Apache: water. Did Jacob Morrison's story end happily? No. Some wounds are too deep to heal completely. He never remarried. He never stopped missing Sarah, Thomas, and Emma. But he stopped carrying the fire that Geronimo had described. He stopped letting hate consume him from the inside. Years later, after the Apache Wars ended and Geronimo had been captured and exiled, Jacob wrote him a letter. He never knew if it reached him, but in it he said simply, "You saved my life twice. Once in the desert, once for myself. I cannot give you back your father or your brothers. I cannot undo what I've done, but I can make sure that what you taught me, that our shared humanity is stronger than our hatred, isn't wasted. Thank you." This story isn't really about Apaches and settlers. It's not about the Old West or frontier justice. It's about the moment when hate meets its reflection and flinches. Jacob Morrison spent 3 years believing that revenge would heal him, that every death would bring him closer to peace. But all it did was make him into something he didn't recognize when he looked in the mirror. It took dying, really, truly dying, for him to understand that the oath he'd sworn over those 3 graves had killed him more surely than any bullet could. And it took an enemy to show him how to live again. In the end, the desert taught them both the same lesson. Survival isn't about how many enemies you can defeat. It's about recognizing when you've become your own worst enemy and having the courage to put down your weapons. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to stop fighting. Jacob Morrison died in 1903 at the age of 67. His way station had helped thousands of travelers safely cross the desert. Among his effects, they found a worn leather water skin, Apache made, decorated with symbols of peace and safe passage. He'd kept it for 27 years, a reminder that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the people we swear to destroy are the only ones who can save us from ourselves.